When Spirits Break Free by Andy Evans and Vesna Kovac. Chapter 1. Life for a Life. The sheer strength of the man was obvious to all who looked on as he fought Muhammad Ali in the ring. A fight that would determine world-class heavyweight status. The two fighters were locked in combat, neither one taking the respite that their corner offered. Distracted by a screaming woman in the audience, the doctor felt a crushing blow that hit him squarely across the temple. 1, 2, 3, 4. The count advanced to victory, and darkness reigned. The bell sounded, sealing the fate of both the victorious and the defeated. Pain bore into him as Dr. Forster slowly opened his eyes. The boxing ring faded from view, and the animated chants from the crowd became subdued, transforming into the ringtone of the telephone that lay on the cabinet next to the bed. Still under the induced effect of morphine, the doctor lifted the handset from its cradle. "Hello? Dr. Foster's residence?" His voice slurred as he stifled the yawn that rose from within him. "Doctor, we need you to come quickly." Milan's voice was clearly recognizable, despite his labored breathing, having run through the dimly illuminated streets to the nearest public call box. "It's young Molly, Doctor." The Eastern European accent was exaggerated within the voice. "Take your time, Milan. What's the problem?" "It's the baby, and little Molly's in so much pain with the birth." Milan's desperation was evident. Dr. Foster realized immediately that the child was in danger, and he knew from experience that only time could prevent death. "Go back to Molly and reassure her that help is on its way," he ordered, his professional undertone rising. The pregnancy should have continued for another 4 weeks. His ingrained knowledge told him that the baby may have become breached, before concluding that both mother and child were in immediate danger. Another possibility was that the umbilical cord had become compressed. Any delay would further heighten the risk of fetal distress, and the brain would be starved of much-needed oxygen. The doctor knew, regardless of his own pain, that this was one house call he could not afford to miss. At the age of 64, he treasured the existence of life like he had never done before. His cancer had slowly entered his lungs and marked his presence 12 months before. He knew that his own end was imminent. "You should see a doctor," Mrs. Forster would say, concerned that her beloved husband lay in pain and discomfort. "I am the doctor, my dear," he always replied, carefully concealing the blood-stained handkerchief after wiping his mouth. The doctor's wife had learned to live with the fact that their nights together would be disturbed and turned over, pulling the duck-down duvet over her shoulders to ward off the cold. Never mind, she'd remind herself. Her honourable husband would retire shortly, and then they'd have the rest of their lives without interruptions. Careful not to disturb his wife further, Dr. Forster quietly eased himself out of bed and hurriedly dressed. "Sleep, my sweetheart," he whispered, leaning over to kiss her before closing the bedroom door. Dr. Forster was the last of the old village doctors, a dying breed that would take the time and patience to get to know their patients on a personal level. He had confirmed Molly's pregnancy 8 months earlier, and toasted the news over brandy with Roger, the proud father-to-be. He had been aptly named Old Reliable by the townsfolk for his ability to always reach the patient in their time of need. Despite his own suffering, tonight would be no different, and he would reach the patient regardless. Pain raced through his dying body as he hastily donned his overcoat. Hesitating, he reached for the briefcase that he kept on the breakfast bar dominating the spacious kitchen. Unzipping the side pocket slowly, conscious the noise could alert his sleeping wife to his terminal plight, he pulled out a vial of morphine. The glass felt cold to the touch as he carefully broke the seal, exposing the delicate needle that would convey comfort and warmth, despite the fear and dread it would generate into many. Like a schoolboy inhaling a cigarette away from his teacher's gaze, Dr. Forster quickly looked round to make sure that he was truly alone. Satisfied that his secret would remain his own, he plunged the steel strand into the muscle of his thigh. The heavy weave of his trouser fabric offered no resistance as the sharpened point found its target. From a medical perspective, he knew the immediate hit would always manifest itself from injecting into the bloodstream and go directly into a vein. This time, however, the doctor knew that it may be some time before he was to return home, so an intramuscular administration would release the pain relief at a slower rate into his ravaged body. Besides, he thought to himself, it was now difficult to find a suitable blood-carrying vessel that had not collapsed through his regular injecting. "And one for the journey," he whispered into the darkness. This time he carefully injected directly into his neck, just below the collar line, so that no marks would be visible. Immediately a deep sense of euphoria washed over him, and he held on to the work surface for support. Without further hesitation he discarded the needles into the sharps pouch that he always carried within the medical bag. He felt as if he was floating across the carpet as he made his way to the door. Anxious not to make any noise with his bunch of keys, he quietly turned the lock before peering outside. The weather forecast had been correct, and a thick blanket of snow had fallen, smothering everything beneath its protective covering. Only the blackbirds that sat on the wooden fence remained uncovered as they watched him, unafraid. Careful not to slip on the freshly fallen snow, old Reliable stepped out onto the covered stone path and proceeded down the garden to where he was needed the most. Molly slowly opened her eyes to the movement immediately at her side. Straining to focus her vision, she slowly picked out the unmistaken features of Dr. Forster. "Hush, child, I'm here to help you," he whispered as he spread the contents of his medical bag on the bed beside her. "I was so frightened you would not come," her deep relief evident in her hushed voice. "Relax, Molly, and let me take care of you one final time," Dr. Forster soothed, his words having an almost hypnotic quality. The first baby cry rang out into the silence at 3:05 a.m., announcing that a new life had entered the world. Taking a much-needed rest from the vigil that had begun the day before, they had taken advantage whenever Molly drifted into light sleep. Alison was the first to hear the infant's crying wail as she poured boiling water into cups. Scalding her hand in haste, she ran up the stairs. Although the bedroom was still in darkness, she could clearly make out the sight before her. Molly was awake, nursing her newborn son. Roger and Milan, who had been smoking in the garden, followed closely behind, and excitement rose in the crowded room. The child was crying in his mother's arms, the umbilical cord still making the connection that had transmitted life throughout the pregnancy. "We need to get you both to hospital," Alison screamed in panic. "But everything's fine, Mum," Molly replied exhaustedly. "Let the doctor take care of everything." "The doctor?" Alison looked at her, confused. "Mr. Forster never managed to get here. It must have been the snow that prevented his journey." The ice-cold draught woke Mrs. Forster, and she climbed from the bed, wrapping the thick blanket across her shoulders. Wearily she descended the staircase, and was met with an icy blast as she slowly opened the kitchen door. Her husband was slumped across the carpet, eyes wide, as if staring in disbelief. Beside his body, the medical briefcase revealed the sharps pouch that remained open, exposing a hypodermic syringe. Tears of utter grief streamed from her eyes as she knelt and embraced her lifelong companion for the final time. Looking out through the open doorway, she saw that the snow had settled, looking almost picturesque without the contamination of footprints. "At least, my dear," she said, fighting back the sobs of anguish, "you made it home before the snow fell."